Well, good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock, and my students know I always try and start class exactly on time. I'm sure we'll have a lot of people who join us and who come in and out as we go today. This is going to be a big experiment for all of us because we're trying to figure out how to adapt all of this technology, and I think we'll have a lot of people on here. Because of the number of people we thought might join us, I decided that it made some sense to try and have some featured panelists, if you will. To the extent that those of the rest of you who are joining us want to ask some questions, then I think the chat feature that's available is the best tool for doing that. I'll try and keep an eye on that, and if there's a question that I see that I think maybe should have some feedback from those who are here, then I'll try and bring that up and bring the attention to our panelists. Depending on how things go, if we have an opportunity for other people to give feedback, we'll try and do that. But with a large group like this online, it can get unmanageable. And so it's not that we're not interested in everybody's thoughts and opinions. It's just trying to make it a useful experience for everything. One of the things that we will request is that you try and make sure that you keep your microphone muted at all times. Depending on what technology that you have that you're using, if you have a PC or Mac, typically you will find a toolbar at the bottom of your screen, and that should give you the option to both mute and to turn on or off your video. In addition, that's where you'll find the chat feature and also the managing of participants, which would allow you to kind of see who all is there and be aware of all of that. Our panelists today, I think I'll just let I think everybody knows everyone here. So do we need to do formal introductions? Maybe I'll just have you all make sure you introduce you as we start here this morning. Obviously we're in an unprecedented situation with what's been going on over the past, really just week or two in terms of the ripple effects of the coronavirus outbreak. And so I guess I'll start with just the first question that I had, which is for each of our panelists to say, how are you and your office, how are you addressing and responding to the current situation? And I'm going to start with you, Bud. And so I'm going to spotlight your video and let you take things off.
Yeah, I'm here still. It's a total change for our office. We normally have a lot of people running around, and we've kind of requested they start working from home. We are running with a bare bones crew, but we're still just encouraging business as usual. With some precautions. The normal is I went to a closing on Monday to help an agent that was out of town. Everybody comes into the closing room and they all want to shake hands. And so everybody shook hands, and then we all pump and started squirting it into our hands to correct that. But that we're just not changing a whole lot yet, other than working with a bare bones crew. We have set up Zoom so we can still continue our training from our office, and we're just doing those kind of things right now to minimize the crowd.
Very good, very good. John, would you like to give us an update on kind of what's going on in your office and how you all are handling things?
Yeah. The offices are still open for business as usual with agents and their customers. Our title companies are still, in-house, are still working along. Our staff as well is working remotely. We're doing a lot of conversation with Google Hangouts for the staff. We're also doing training. We use the Blue Jeans app versus Zoom, but very similar. We're trying to make sure everybody's respecting all the clients. We're making sure all the agents are touching base with their customers and respecting their wishes when it comes to how they want to do business. But yeah, doing things remotely, trying to do the social distancing.
Sure. Next, let's go to John McKenzie. John, do you want to give us a little update on what's been going on in your office and how your office is handling everything?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. We're pretty much doing the same thing. We are business as usual. We sent out a memo to all the agents this past Tuesday, asking them to please work from home, do what they can from their home offices, and that our staff, both our offices, are at full bore. We're fortunate our East office has a lot of good separation between our employees, our front office, back office. Most of our folks have individual offices to work from, so there's a decent amount of separation there. West office, pretty much the same way. But we are open for business, keeping our normal hours. We're monitoring people coming in the front door. Our front desk has a huge responsibility now to make sure folks are here that should be here. We received a memo, and I'm sure most of you have received a memo from Security Title that they're instituting a program beginning Monday that will encourage people to have appointments before they come in. They're not going to just take in walk-in traffic. And this again is to minimize and encourage social distancing, so making sure that people come in that have appointments, which I think is a great move on their part. And pretty much that's it. We've encouraged our folks to minimize open houses, to definitely check with their clients and customers to make sure if they want an open house that they practice good hygiene, handy wipes, those kinds of things, minimizing shaking hands, things that are mostly common sense stuff. But it's so far we haven't seen any huge pushback. But I think unfortunately with things that are happening in the marketplace today, I'm afraid the worst is yet to come. I hate to be negative about that, but I think some folks are running scared. It's definitely unprecedented.
So, very good. Thank you very much. Richelle, would you like to give us an update on how your office is handling things and what's been going on there?
Sure, absolutely. The same protocol with everybody else, a little bit, just following all of the CDC and KDHE guidelines and recommendations. Until further notice, we've asked our sales associates to come in for the only most critical needs and for limited durations, keep that social distancing. We have followed some extra cleaning and distance protocols here at the office. We have canceled our office gatherings, our sales meetings, and agent training will be handled remotely at this point. And like John said, I think just using common sense when we're around our clients and servicing their needs at this point.
Very good. Well, I wanted to get a little bit of perspective from some other folks that touch on our industry. And so I asked Ernest Warren, who's with Vice President of Mortgage Lending for Credit Union of America. So Ernie, could you give us an update on things that are going on, both with kind of the banking industry in general, in terms of what you all are doing and how you're handling things with branches and other issues? I know that's not your primary area, but then also exactly what you're seeing kind of on the mortgage lending side and how this is affecting your pipeline and the process by which you're handling things. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, Stan. And I would just like to bring to everyone's attention that the social distancing stance is being executed by almost all financial institutions. Because we have a large brick and mortar presence, one of the difficult decisions we made, and we're implementing it today, is we have, in essence, restricted customer entry into our lobbies at all of our branches. That's a means of assisting the general public with making sure that we're not enabling the virus to just continue to replicate itself in the public. With that being said, on the associate side, we've also executed social distancing from the standpoint of we have some relatively large departments, for example, telephone banking, which is our basic customer service center, as well as a group of tellers on what we call a tap teller, which is basically their remote video capture tellers. This has taken us to the point where we understand the need to separate those departments, as well as some of our other larger departments, to keep from, the potential for impacting the whole team. So we've split those individuals out into different locations. It's just a part of a broader plan to ensure that we can meet the needs of our members via the electronic, the mobile, the online banking, and still service our core customers through the normal teller channels through our tap teller locations. On the real estate side and throughout the organization, we have prioritized groups that are critical and the individuals that have the current capacity to work on a remote basis. We've taken out those that are at high risk, and we've put them as the top priority to get them working remote, to remove them from any health or potential issues down the road, as well as we have one or more loan officers that do have the capability to work remote if we need to go that route. So at the present time, all of our mortgage staff is pretty much still in place working out of the offices. But as I said, they do have the ability to work remote if that's a trigger we need to pull. That takes care of the business as far as financial services. What we're seeing in the mortgage space right now, we're forced to kind of be in a reactive mode. We've been proactive to the level that we can be. Of course, ours is a people business that's dependent upon critical third parties. So we've got plans in place to maintain business as usual as long as we can. It just depends on the variables, the levers that are pulled in the community as far as how long we'll be able to conduct business as usual and what challenges we may face if we have title companies that are impacted, if we have the county recording office that makes decisions, kind of like the public schools. We're all on a let's wait and see approach and trying to be proactive and figure out ways to overcome these challenges in the event they arise.
Very good. Very good. Well, I also asked Patrick Goebel with Star Lumber to talk a little bit about what he's seeing among all the home builders and those. So let me spotlight you, Patrick. Patrick, can you give us an update on some of the things you're seeing from that side of the industry?
Yes, I'd echo what everybody else said about how we're dealing with our employees and social distancing and remote. But in regards to residential new construction, the first thing is that we're finding that all the residential and commercial job sites are still very active. Fortunately, in a typical residential construction situation, you very rarely have more than a couple trades there at a time. And so we're finding to have more than 5 people at a job site is unusual. And the backlogs are strong. So absent the rain this week, I think we would have had a normal delivery week. We actually still have quite a few people wanting to come in and make selections for flooring and trim and doors. Up until last week, I would tell you that this has been one of the most incredible first quarters we've seen in a long time. And so there are a lot of jobs in progress. And to this point, we haven't seen any cancellations of those. Some builders have reported some postponements, but people that had already pulled the trigger on it, I think because of the interest rate environment and everything else, if they had already decided to build, they're continuing to build. You know, so in the selection process, we've had to take steps. Some people, you know, we've spread the appointments out. We're spraying samples down. We've actually done quite a few selections via Skype or Zoom or GoToMeeting. We're trying to offer lots of opportunities there for that. But fortunately, there's not a high concentration of people at any one time. One of the things customers are concerned about is you know, whether or not they'll be able to continue to pull permits and get inspections done. At this point, Wes at WABA says that that is all still open. They're running a little bit behind, but that could be something that if we go into a full city-county shutdown that could stop job sites. But the subcontractor trades, though, are a very tough and resilient bunch, and they're not going to stop going to the job sites until they run out of stuff, which I have gotten multiple calls from both residential and commercial GCs wanting to know about that. We're also finding that at this point, the supply chain is strong. We expect some delays as some places, like say a window manufacturing, for example, if their city gets hit hard, we would expect some delays there. But at this point, absent maybe one or two vendors asking us to come get material rather than them deliver it. The supply chain has been strong. I saw an email the other day that WABA is considering delaying Parade of Homes. I have not been informed of what the vote was, but just be aware that for the spring Parade of Homes, which usually would start here in early April, they're talking about maybe pushing it back a month or so. I don't know, there's an email if you're interested. There's an email out there. I think their proposal was to postpone it until May 30th through June 14th rather than the April 18th through May 3rd. And I think that's probably a good move. My guess is that will pass. But other than that, we're trying to, our mantra is to safely do whatever we can do as long as we can do it. And our customers are begging us to do that at this point.
Very good. Very good. Well, I'm glad you talked about the supply chain, because that was one of the issues that I had a particular interest in, and kind of knowing, the fear of, will people who want to work and want to keep doing things not be able to because they can't get the parts and supplies that they need. And so far, that doesn't seem to be an issue.
Yeah, and we had already beefed up for our spring inventory. So short term, I'm not that concerned. If this goes on a long time, there may be intermittent, outages on certain things. But even things like cleaning supplies, toilet paper, all that stuff, everybody's on like an allocation.
So very good. Well, Sheila, I know you weren't technically one of our featured video people here today, but I thought, given your role and the importance for everybody in the industry, maybe you'd like to talk a little bit about things that are going on with the Realtors office and how you're helping to serve everybody and still keep everybody safe and moderated in terms of risks.
Okay, well, yes, we are trying to cut down on meetings, in-person contact. We're transitioning. We're hoping by Monday to have kind of a quasi-remote staff. We're going to try to limit members coming into the building unless they have an appointment. So we're going to keep that down to a minimum. The fact that there's 10 of us and we have a large building, when it comes to social distancing, we're doing well. But we'll have information coming out on that later today. So
very good. Very good. Well, I do want to encourage everybody to, I want to encourage everybody to think about, bring myself back here. If you have questions that you'd like us to present to all the panelists here or comments that you want to feed in, please do that through this chat feature, and I'll make sure that we pass that on. We talked a little bit about how it's affecting scheduling of open houses, showings, and things like that. But I wanted to follow up with all of the brokers here and see how you're seeing buyers and sellers reacting. Are sellers uncomfortable with having general showings, even separate from an open house? Our buyers, we've been such a tight market. The month supply at the end of February was the tightest I think that we've had on record. I know that's true for the state. I think that was true for Wichita as well. Is there any change in the way buyers are responding or are things being put on hold? And in particular, are you seeing any sellers who maybe are withdrawing their listings, or are buyers seeing an opportunity to jump in? How do you think that's working? So I see Richelle here up at the top, so I'll have you start for us, Richelle.
Yeah, from our vantage point right now, I mean, obviously things are changing rapidly, but our buyers are seeing some opportunities to continue to look because of the low inventory, and they have not let up. They are really wanting to look at anything that comes on the market. We're still having multiple offer situations with our buyers. So I have not seen that part let up. I do know we got a report from Showing Time yesterday that showings have dropped off drastically, but from the buyers that our agents are working with, they are still very interested in finding the right home that fits their needs.
Very good. Very good. Bud, would you like to jump in and give your thoughts on what's going on in your office? I muted you there, Bud. I'm sorry about that. Unmute. There you go.
Got it? We've had a kind of an interesting time in the last, it actually started last Friday. We had a buyer that wanted to back out. Their closing was this Thursday. And they called me and we talked for probably an hour. And I suggested they think about it over the weekend. They called back Monday and said, yeah, we want the house. We're going to go ahead and close this week. So, but what we've seen this week is investors have come out of the woodwork. So they're looking for deals, obviously, and trying to do that. We've had a couple of listing cancellations. The interesting part is we had, it's happened 2 different times, is that agents had appointments scheduled and they got to the house to show it and the owners are still there and didn't want it to be shown. So they didn't call and change it. They just canceled it when the agent and the buyer showed up. So I think we're going to see everything imaginable happen through this right now till people get settled in, figure out what's going on.
Very good. John, you want to give us perspectives from your office there? And I think you're unmuted there, but
Hear me?
I can.
All right, great. We have not seen any major repercussions. This past weekend was really unusual. Monday morning, I think we got something like 9 contracts came through. The open house count was up. Our folks, the only negative thing that's happened in the last 48 hours was that we did have one buyer who anticipated that they might be getting laid off, that wanted out of the contract, but that particular house that they were buying was in a multiple offer situation. And so we were able to execute the backup contract, and that's moving along nicely. We have not had any listing cancellations at all. And that's not to say that that won't happen in the next few days, but for right now, it seems to be business as usual. The thing I'm concerned about is the pipeline. I'm concerned that I'm hearing grumblings out there, and I'd love to hear the comment from the lending side if they're getting any pushback from appraisers. Somebody told me that one appraiser was not interested in going out given the current dynamics of the marketplace, and he or she, I'm not even sure who it was anticipating that they didn't want to expose their family to any kind of environmental issues. So having said that, it's still business as usual, but like I said earlier, it's fluid, it's moving, and anything can happen over the next few weeks.
Well, maybe we should have Ernie give a little feedback there, since there's a question about the pipeline and particularly about, so appraisers, obviously they're going into the houses. You'll also have third-party inspectors that are going to go in. You then have the processing side and everything are, for instance, if I'm trying to validate somebody's employment situation and the HR department of the company is down to a bare bones staff, are you seeing that impacting you yet, or is it something you're anticipating?
It's not something that I've seen really take a foothold yet. However, the beginning of this week, I did have conversations with 3 different real estate appraisers. And they made it a point to mention to me that it wasn't necessarily they were uncomfortable, but in this high volume refinance, we're having members that are now expressing concern about allowing the appraisers in their home. So I'm seeing it from the opposite side of the fence, from the actual borrowers stating their reservations. And I think it's going to trigger the appraisers to ask that question of themselves as well at some point. The longer this goes on, is it something they want to continue doing in the present environment? So it's something that's unfolding slowly, but I do expect with additional news and the numbers ramping up, we'll have to deal with this as a society, both personally and professionally.
Okay, very good. John, any issues you're seeing in terms of your buyers and sellers, and really curious how all of this may impact the balance of homes available for sale versus the buyers who are out there, and if you're seeing any trends that way.
Similar to what other folks are saying, nothing terrible, nothing big yet, but next week might be a different story. Last Sunday, I think we had 80 open houses and one seller backed out of it, so nothing big. One interesting thing, we did have a listing that the seller was on self-quarantine, had gotten home from a cruise. Still wanted to show the property, still wanted it to be shown, and buyers were still wanting to show it. So we had the agent draw up a hold harmless that everybody was aware that that seller was in self-quarantine, and that they were showing the property and entering it, and they were aware of the situation. But other than that, nothing big at this time.
So no, I would have thought that might have been a perfect environment to test a video or remote showing as opposed to.
And that's something we've recommended to the agents is if the sellers or the buyers in the instance do have some concern, that a video would be a wonderful opportunity, and either it can be taken by the seller or the agent can go take it if they feel comfortable. And maybe that can be considered the first showing. And if they really like it from there, then we can figure out something for the next step.
Okay. Is the situation affecting, the potential, and again, maybe too early to tell, but for multiple offer situations, when you've got a really desirable house, for instance, last weekend, did you see fewer offers than you may have expected if it had happened a week ago?
No, not yet. And this week, I think we're all on the same page where we haven't seen that big effect. But next week, maybe the multiple offers won't be as common as they are right now.
Okay. Ernie, I'm going to come back to you because there was a question about mortgage rates and what's happening with mortgage rates. So I think you mentioned yesterday when we chatted that you'd had 2 rate changes during the day. So what are some of the things you're seeing?
Well, to be completely honest with you, it's something we've never experienced before. At least I've been in the business for 25 years and I've never seen it this haywire. On one hand, it's emotional. The rates are emotionally based right now. And then on the second side, it would appear to me that after the 2 different rate changes yesterday, where we went up in cost about 75 basis points from the beginning of the morning to the end of the day, the rates are artificially high right now. And it seems to me that it may be an intentional act by the federal government to basically create a calm down period and let things settle out, because we've got a lot of pent up volume that can't get out already from that last rate drop. And now it's exacerbating the problem, having the lower rates and volume continuing to come in that is questionable. From the investment community right now, there's viewed to be too much risk out there. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few days to see if we can settle these mortgage rates back down to a reasonable level that's commensurate with the current market environment.
So very good, very good. Let me, we have a poll here, and I thought this might be an opportunity for everybody to kind of jump in. So I'm going to activate this polling. It's a question of whether or not, we've talked to the brokers who are here, but the question that we have here is whether or not you're seeing delayed closings or closings that have been canceled in the wake of it. And so we've got several options, and I think you should be able on your screen there to vote on all of these, and we'll give you a few minutes to be able to vote. Hopefully everybody is seeing that. So first option is all my closings are continuing as scheduled. The second is I've had a few closings that will be delayed, but they're still going to close. I've had a lot of delayed closings, but none canceled, or we're beginning to see buyers back out of deals. So yes, no, everybody able to see this and click and vote on it?
Stan, I don't see the poll at all.
Do not see the poll. I have activated it, so let me unspotlight myself. Does that help?
Still just see you.
Dear. Let's see here. It should be up there. It says it's activated. Attendees are now viewing questions. So sorry, this is we're making all this up as we go. So if this is not live, then we're going to cancel the poll. So never mind. We'll throw that out. We've had some of the other people say there, but I've had at least if there's anybody who's with us and joined us that would like to, so I've canceled our polling, and we'll maybe try that again a different time. If there's somebody who's joined us, there is an option as you look on your managed participants. You can choose, one of your options there is to actually raise your hand where you can ask a question. So if anybody is interested in being able to ask a question, then please feel free to raise your hand. I'm seeing a lot of comments saying no on the polling question. So, well, one of the questions that I did get here on our group chat that we had is that it took a bit in 2008, and a bit would be a very short time frame to say this, but it took a long time after 2008 for the real estate sector to really be impacted by the financial meltdown. Can we expect the same this time? And so I guess maybe this one, I'll open it up to our panelists and others to say, but I'll try and start with this, is that, you know, we're starting from such a strong place in the housing market with such intense demand that in some ways, if we see a moderation of demand, that's actually going to ease things up. It's going to make the process be able to flow through a little bit easier for us. On the other hand, if we end up seeing sellers get nervous and they pull themselves out of the market, that's not going to have an impact on that. Long term, the impact on the housing market is going to depend a lot on how intensive the financial fallout is. And I have to confess that I have been far more nervous about the economic fallout of all of this than I have been about the medical fallout. Now, that partially comes because I'm an economist, not an epidemiologist, but there's a part of me that's fearful that we may be in a world where we're creating a far worse problem that creates a lot more hardship and real damage to people's lives than the coronavirus itself could happen. And so I'm very pleased when I hear about the supply chain. That's been one of the concerns that I have, is that as businesses, shut down or minimize or pull back, it's one thing if it's a retail establishment, that's hard on those people involved. But when you have intermediate suppliers of goods and they pull back on their production and so forth, we could end up with shortages that really extend the time that it takes to develop this. So let me throw out and see if there are any of our panelists that have anything that you want to join in with that.
Stan, I'll throw out something since I lived through that disaster in 2008, going through 9, 10, and part of 11. The biggest difference we see is that the economics of our industries right now is pretty solid. When you stop and think about, we have low inventory, we have interest rates at their all-time low. There is pent-up demand. The demand is still there. And short of this pandemic going crazy over the next 30 days or so, I see a quick recovery. If we can get our arms around this whole thing, I think the economics situation today is a lot different. Liquidity is still there in most of the major industries. So it wasn't like it was in 08. We had a substantially more inventory, and it was a difficult time because we couldn't get that stuff through the pipeline. So that's my 2 cents.
So, Richelle, I see your picture here at the top. You have anything you want to throw in on that?
I have to agree with John. I think that 08, 09, that was a lot that had to do with the over inventory, the mortgage industry, how the loans were written, and people getting in trouble from that direction. I think this is coming from a total different direction for us. We were a strong economy until this hit us. And I do think that if we can get past this, we will recover well. Obviously, we are on uncharted waters. I think pulling everybody together and brainstorming the ideas on how we can get through this it shows incredible strength throughout the industry. And I think that's what's most important right now, as we did in 08, 09. I mean, we pulled builders, developers together and said, how can we get through this? What do we need to do? And we have all very strong people in how we do our business. And I think just reaching out to each other and getting through this is most critical at this point. So, but I do think we can come out of this quicker.
Very good. Very good. Bud, you want to throw in anything on that?
Yeah, I had a conversation this morning with a friend concerning the Textron. And of course, they laid off 7,000 or go furlough, I guess is their term, 7,000. And they said 30 days. However, he's saying that that's what they're releasing to the media. They're telling inside it could be at least 60 days. They're expecting 60 days, maybe longer. That might release some, it wouldn't surprise me to see some of those people want to sell. So that might give us a little bit additional inventory. Just depends on the financial situation of the employees.
Yeah.
And what the government says they're going to do. I don't know if a couple of grand's going to bail anybody out or not, but all those are variables you got to look at.
Right, right. Well, one of the fallout pieces that I think is going to happen very, very quickly is going to be in terms of state and local government finance, and the impact on sales taxes, the impact. I think property taxes. I'm not necessarily convinced that home values and property values are going to move dramatically in the immediate run, and it takes time for that to go through the property tax process. But sales taxes and income tax collections could be heavily impacted by all of this. And unfortunately, what that does is it sort of creates a double down on any negative economic cycle, because as that happens, the state government is required to have a balanced budget. And that's, from a political perspective, I think we all understand why that's there. From an economic perspective, it's the opposite of what you'd like a government to do in times of economic stress. And so finding that balance is challenging. John, did you have anything you wanted to add to that discussion?
Not so much, besides like Bud said, the Textron thing yesterday, for obvious reasons, hit closer to home for a lot of us. And curious to see how long that lasts. I think we can look at the East and West Coast like we've always been lucky to do. And once things start leveling out there, or answers are being seen there, we will start seeing that at the end of the tunnel as well. I think we can always bounce back a little quicker as we're watching what they're doing.
Right, right. Ernest, you had given us a chat comment about mortgage rates and the impact of the Fed. Did you want to follow up on that and share with that at all? Oops, we lost you there, Ernie. Hold on, let me make sure you're unmuted. So you got it. Good.
Well, it's just been an interesting time ever since the surprise Fed rate cut. How many members, that's all they hear and they understand, and we've just been deluged with calls. Hey, I want to get that 0.25 or that 0% mortgage rate. And so we've been spending a lot of time educating people and trying to get them to understand that they're not tied together. It will have an impact, but that impact has yet to be determined on the actual mortgage rates. And so it's a lot of people that wouldn't lock because they were under the advice from someone that rates were going to go lower. Well, when they call back in to check the rates and we tell them it's 65, 75 basis points higher, it's a shock to the system. And so I think it just goes with all of us are going through almost PTSD as we go through this, and it's an alternate reality right now in a lot of different ways. We're doing things and thinking about things that we've never been forced to address.
Very good. I'm going to pull up here real quick to kind of show people the weekly mortgage rate figures are due next week, but actually later today. So I just shared my screen here. Did I share the right screen? I think I thought I shared the correct screen. I must have shared. There we go. The weekly mortgage rate figures. Can everyone see that? Or did I take it away from you?
I think you took it away.
There we go. Put it back. Sorry, too many screens to work with at once. Weekly mortgage rate figures here, and you can see here the spike that that Ernie was talking about, which was kind of unexpected to see that spike that happened here. And let me just double check, because I don't think I saw that here earlier when I looked at these weekly mortgage rate figures. That figure, I want to see my date on this graph to see if my GA actually updated it in the meantime. No, that was updated last week. So we will see again what's happened there. Again, not what I would have expected. And so we shall see how that happens and goes forward. But still, even with that, the rates are incredibly low. So let me unshare my screen now and go back to where we were. The rates today, someone asked a question, what are the rates today? They actually get released in terms of the last week's national average, will get released in about 20 minutes. Ernie, what's your current rate that you're offering right now? Oops, unmute, no, Ernie. Unmute, there we go.
Sorry about that. Currently, as of yesterday evening, I haven't checked rates this morning, but we were sitting on the 15-year. We were sitting at about 3.125 and about 3.5 to 3.75 for the 30-year.
Okay, very good. Well, I don't want to take everybody's time, and you know, we scheduled ourselves for an hour and a half, but I don't want to necessarily take, you know, we've all got a lot of things to deal with and things that are changing rapidly. So if there are any last questions, or if anybody else who's joined us today has a comment or anything that they would like to add, please raise your hand. Or I think the only reason to raise your hand on there is to be able to make sure we don't have 5 people jumping on at the same time. So if you have something you'd like to add, then please add it. And otherwise, I'm going to go around with our panelists and just say, are there any final thoughts that you want to make sure we talk about? I think, do I have a raised hand here? I'm not seeing it yet. I think not. So let's go back to our to everyone, and let's just start up there with Bud, since I've got you at the top. Any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to say?
Well, I'm kind of staying, I'm sure John McKenzie's doing the same thing, staying in touch with our legislators. The budget for this next year came to the floor yesterday. Looking at the governor's proposed budget, they're claiming it's bare bones, but it increased by $400 million. So I don't know how bare bones that is. So we're going to have an issue, I think, with the, you know, staying within the budget, whatever they pass. And so that will be interesting. As far as sales, I guess I'm like the rest. We're just continuing on the way we have. It's our training is just being done online instead of in the office, so we don't have a large collection of people. But we're still optimistic about the year. It may come later in the year, but you know, if we can get beyond this, the scare that we have right now, it should be a pretty good year.
Very good. Richelle, you want to give us any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think our ultimate goal is to keep everybody safe, our clients, our agents, our associates, our staff. You know, just be very cautious in how we get through this, but yet at the same time, being able to serve our customer and client needs as we work through this. And I do appreciate what you've done here today, Stan. I think this helps us all come together and share ideas and think of some steps forward that maybe we weren't thinking of ahead of time.
Very good. Very good. John, I'm going to come back to you now. So any final thoughts that you wanted to give us?
Well, yeah, it's day by day. We're going to see if this is going to be a 2-week ordeal or a 6-month ordeal. That's going to make a big difference on how the year pans out. But yeah, safety and health of everybody is the number one concern, and meeting the client's needs. That's what we're here to do.
Excellent. Excellent. John, come back to you.
Yeah, ditto on everything that was said. I would like to encourage everybody to utilize as much communication devices that you can. We do have, the Kansas Association of Realtors has a website that includes called The Buzz, that if you hear of anything that's going on in the market that's unusual or different, I would suggest enroll in that particular communications piece and be able to keep everybody informed. I think this is good because we can share thoughts and experiences and ideas that's going to help us going forward. So it's critical. Another vehicle you could look at is realtor.org. Get involved on it and hear what's going on across the country. You get more of a global perspective, which I think is important. But communication is the key, and that's what we're concentrating on with our agents. We're gonna make it a point to keep them apprised of the good, bad, and the ugly, and tell the truth and just move forward.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Patrick, any other thoughts that you wanted to share with us, or any other things that came to your mind as we've been just talking?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the overall economy, we're watching that a bill that passed last night fairly closely. I had expected to see some guidance on the bill that passed last night from an employer standpoint. My understanding is there's quite a bit of relief for employees and some extensions to the Family Medical Leave Act. And then there's also, unusually, this is a funded mandate through tax credits. So I can't imagine what this is going to do to us long term as a country, as far in terms of the deficit and the debt. But I think short term that there may be some stimulus in there, that if this is not a drawn out deal, we could just make this a major speed bump. But every week that goes by concerns me. And I'll just say a week ago when the NBA canceled, I would have never believed we would have got to this point this quick. So we're watching it closely, but right now it's, like I said, we're going to finish first quarter at a record level, and that's primarily the residential new construction. So
Yeah.
I hope it is short term.
Well, I will tell you, the thing that you've said here today gives me the most encouragement of anything that I've had in the past week, which is that, from your perspective, supply chains still are pretty strong. And I know that's just in the construction industry, but I think that translates and would reflect what's going on in a lot of other areas as well.
Exactly.
And from a long-term economic fallout perspective, it's the supply chain that really would be the one that would be hard to overcome, because even if you stimulate demand, if there's nothing to buy, you can't buy it. So,
yeah.
So Ernie, I'm going to come back to you, let you have kind of the final word.
Well, I would just say to everyone that we have a rare opportunity to really show our communities what we do to support them. And together, we just need to maintain communication and share information. And the biggest thing for me right now is challenge conventional thought. These are unconventional times, and we need to use our ingenuity to overcome whatever challenges are thrown at us. That's who we are as a people. And I'm proud to be associated with each one of you, because I have no doubt we'll make this, we'll survive, and we'll prosper, because we're going to band together. And that's what we do as Americans.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists. I did see some comments here, some suggestions that we maybe come back, and I think the suggestion was 30 days, but the way that things are changing, I'll keep in touch with Sheila. And if this is something that would be useful to kind of have a quick touch base again, then we can sure do this as frequently or as often as we need to do. So thanks once again for everybody for participating, and you all have a wonderful day. Keep safe and keep the businesses running, because that's really, really important, trying to find that balance. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.